Forget 100 men versus one gorilla, we can't even beat bots at checkouts. So we are less than 1 month away from the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2, and hype levels have been all over the place for this. Personally, I'm really excited about a lot of things with this, but there are still a few things out there which are bringing down that level of excitement just a little bit. And it's going to be an interesting future for this console, especially with the landscape of the gaming industry it's currently in. We've got things like the Xbox consoles raising in price, even PlayStation consoles raised in price a little bit. Games which are, bordering on 80, maybe even £100 in the future. It's a really weird time. But with all that said, it's not hard to see why the Nintendo Switch 2 has been something which a lot of people, myself included, are really excited for. So I just wanted to break down a few things which I'm excited for and a few things which I'm not really looking forward to. I'm really excited about. This is the first time in recent memory which Nintendo has focused on essentially the hardware of the console and the actual power and grunt inside of it over some gimmick. Now, what I mean by that is, after the GameCube came out, everyone was hoping that the next console was just going to be a bigger, beefier version of that to compete with things like the PS2 and the PS3. But it wasn't, it was the Wii. Now, don't get me wrong, the Wii is one of the best-selling games consoles of all time. It's incredible what it did for Nintendo, and it really turned around the company's fortunes. However, it felt like the motion control gimmick, in my opinion, was shoehorned into a lot of things, and it didn't really do it for me. And then after the success of the Wii, we had the Wii U come out, which, well, it came out, that thing was a mess from the get-go for a lot of reasons, but one of the gimmicks on that console was the gamepad, which you could argue was sort of a prototype for the Switch itself. And then after the Wii U, you had the Switch, which, the main gimmick, I suppose, with that one was the ability to, well, play handheld or play in dock like a normal console. So there was a lot of things with that. A lot of games took advantage of the separate Joy-Cons and the features within them. It kind of felt like it was the first step that Nintendo tried to get away from some really weird things being shoehorned into games. And now with the Switch 2, it seems as though Nintendo has found a blueprint which is working for them and decided to go, you know what, let's just keep doing that and just make it more beefy. Who's going to argue with that? Yes, you can say that the mouse side of it is a bit of a gimmick, and there are a few games out there which do use it, Metroid Prime 4 being one of them, Drag X Drive as being one of them. But aside from that, I don't see that being shoehorned into a Zelda game anytime soon. Maybe not a mainline Zelda game anyway. It's just really nice to see them trying to compete with the graphical fidelity of the other mainstream consoles that are out there. Because a lot of the time it feels as though games for the Switch were dumbed down quite a bit. I mean, just look at the textures on Witcher 3. Yes, an absolute marvel that it came out on one cartridge with all the DLC. However, those textures were not the nicest to look at. Then you had games like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, who, when you played them in handheld mode, most of the characters didn't have actual faces. But going into the Switch 2 generation now and seeing that they're putting a lot of emphasis on the grunt in that machine, as a Nintendo fan, I'm really happy with that. In the past, whenever titles would come out on both PlayStation and on Nintendo properties, it kind of felt as though that the Nintendo version was a little bit dumbed down, and one of my earliest memories of realizing this was when I was a kid and I was playing WWF Attitude on my N64, and then I rented it to play on my cousin's PlayStation, and the PlayStation version had actual music in it, actual FMV video. We didn't get that on the N64. The console couldn't handle all that data. The cartridge itself couldn't hold it. So we faced a little bit of a dumbed down version of that, and it kind of always felt like that going forward, be that with games not having enough on the actual cartridge itself, or the disc for the GameCube being so small. I mean, I don't actually know the specs of them, but I can't imagine they were holding as much as a normal disc was holding for a PS2 or an Xbox console at the time. And then you look at the games that came out on the Switch and onto the other mainstream consoles at the moment. They can't really compare in graphical fidelity, but now it kind of feels as though we're scratching that surface of, actually, there's a lot more we could get out of these consoles. I mean, I've played the Switch 2, and I can say for a fact that it is a gorgeous console, and I am really excited to see what is going to come out from it. And also, Monolith, Xenoblade Chronicles 4, please just make it happen sooner rather than later. I'm not excited about. This current generation of gaming has highlighted a lot of people's different preferences when it comes to how they actually want to play their games. One of the main things has been how they buy their games. There are people such as myself who prefer to own a physical copy of that game.
Loser! You're a loser!
And there are people out there who prefer to have a digital copy of the game. And it feels as though going forward, we're probably going to own less and less.
You get nothing! You lose!
And when I say own less and less, I mean the fact that if you have a physical copy of a game, great. You've got the game on that cartridge, on that disc, whatever it is, you've got it there. But with these game key cards, they're just download codes, essentially, on chips. You don't own it. You can't really do anything with it. Like, yes, I could give someone else that cartridge and download it, but if the servers ever get turned off, or there's an issue with it, or I'm somewhere where I haven't got internet, I can't play that game. Whereas I can just slot Xenoblade Chronicles 3 into my Switch right now and I can just play that if I want. And you could argue that the retro market isn't something which they should be thinking about when releasing a new console, and I fully get you. However, as someone who was invested in the retro market in the past, I do want to be able to play my games wherever I want to play them. And if I wanted to fire up my SNES right now and play Super Mario World in its original form, I could do that without a problem. Going forward with these game keycards, I'm not going to be able to do that as easily. It's going to be a really big hurdle to get over. And yes, I know I'm in the minority, but I love my old games. Sue me. Going forward with this generation, it kind of feels as though we are going to see less and less physical copies of games coming out. You could argue, yeah, great, cool, it's going to free up a load of space. I'm not going to have a bunch of game discs filling up shelf space. But that's part of the fun in my eyes anyway. And there's a lot of people that feel like me out there that owning a game is a massive thing. And when you take away that ability to own something, you're essentially giving me a really expensive version of Netflix where I don't know when that product is going to be taken off the service. I'm really excited about. The Switch 1 has been a massive success for games console, and you'd be hard pressed to argue to me that it was actually not. There were games companies out there when it first released that were really hesitant about supporting it and didn't really want to support it. Companies such as EA actually stopped bringing over some of their sports titles to it, and some franchises never made it over. We had games from the 2K series of games that didn't get fully brought over as well. And there's a lot of things like that that happen with different gaming companies and different third parties out there, which don't appear that they're going to be an issue going forward. It seems as though Nintendo's going to be getting a lot more support from these third parties now, which is only going to be an amazing thing for gamers out there. Having the choice of where you play your games is really, really important to gamers. And if you're telling them that you can play certain games on the Switch, which means you can play them in handheld or docked wherever you go, you're going to get more sales for it. You'd actually be stupid to not want to put your titles on this console, given how successful its predecessor was. Now, yes, I fully get that you could make the same argument about the Wii U and saying that, hey, the Wii was so successful, so let's put our games on the Wii U. That didn't work out. Yeah, that console sucked. I own one. I'm allowed to say that. But going forward with the Nintendo Switch 2, we've got games coming out from third parties on launch or in that launch window like I talked about before, which are just incredible. Things like Street Fighter 6 coming out, you've got Cyberpunk coming out, Yakuza 0, all these games from high-level publishers and high-level developers, which is only going to drive more and more support to this platform. And it's something that I hope continues, because there's a lot of titles coming out which I think would really benefit from that Switch ecosystem and from the Switch player base. And I think the fans of Nintendo Switch consoles will actually enjoy a lot of games which they're missing out on currently. So many indie titles and so many smaller titles never made it over, and I really hope that the Switch 2 opens those doors for gamers all over the world to enjoy these games on a portable or on a console style level. I'm not excited about. When that first Switch 2 Direct finished, a lot of people started talking about the launch lineup, and if you were expecting this generation to come in and have a new Mario, a new Zelda, a new Mario Kart, a new Donkey Kong, and a new Smash Bros off the bat, I don't know what you think actually happens with games consoles, because that never happens, okay? That said, the launch lineup itself is still pretty good. I mean, I've got my own views on it. I do think that the fact that we're getting a lot of older games ported back over is not the best. However, we've got to start somewhere. What better way of judging if your player base is actually there than by releasing popular games already? Yeah, you're asking people to double dip, but I'm sure a lot of people will still be picking up things like Cyberpunk and Yakuza 0 and all these other third-party titles out there. One of the things that is going to suck is the weight. And I don't mean the physical weight of the console. What I mean is the wait for the lineup to get good. After that initial launch period and after we've had DK Bonanza come out, we're kind of sort of left in like a twilight period. And I don't mean like a sparkly vampire type of way. I mean like we don't really have much on the horizon that's got cemented dates for it. We haven't got a firm calendar of when things come out afterwards. And it took a while for the Switch to have a lineup of solid Switch games. And what I mean by that is it's going to take a while for the Switch 2 to have a lineup of games which are exclusive to the Switch 2 or not available on the Switch 1 at least. You know, talking about third-party titles here that are available on PlayStation and Xbox platforms. But if they come out on the Switch 1, it's bit weird in my eyes. I fully get you want to support the older generations. The criticisms that Sony and Microsoft both got for supporting their older platform for as long as they actually did, I hope Nintendo listens to that and realizes they need to drop the Switch 1 sooner rather than later. Maybe not within the first year, but as soon as we can get some Switch 2 focused games out, the better. And we're starting off strong. But that said, it's going to take a while, and I'm not a fan of waiting. Very impatient with stuff, but it's going to be fun, and we'll be there for the ride. I'm really excited about We've seen that Nintendo's got an upgrade plan for some of these older games, be that with patches which will just give them, you know, higher quality frames per second and bug fixes. We've even got the upgrade packs for things like Kirby Star Allies and Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom and other games, and Mario Party Jamboree as well. We know they're going to be coming out. What I'm really looking forward to is what impact the hardware has on other games. And I'm really looking forward to see what it can do with certain titles. And I really hope we do get these patches, because seeing games like Xenoblade Chronicles X and the whole series of Xenoblade games, you might get an inkling that I like the Xenoblade games the amount that I mention them in these videos. I do. Seeing what they can look like in 4K 60 would be incredible. Seeing how things such as Astral Chain, Smash Bros, like what can these older games do on this new hardware? And I really hope it doesn't take long for Nintendo to actually start cranking out these update patches. We saw it a lot with the PS5, and a lot of games just got these upgrade patches and there was no extra stuff that was added in. It was just, hey look, this has got a graphics bump now, which was great. Yes, there were some that had, you know, extra PS5 editions which you had to pay extra for, and I fully get that, and controversially I kind of understand it as well. You've put work into it, it shouldn't be free. That said, not including the DLC when you have the upgrade pack is a little bit of a sore spot. I'm not excited about. I've just talked about how the Xbox games consoles are so expensive now, and they're just getting more and more expensive. And Nintendo was blamed for a lot of the game price choices there, and I don't think that was fair. However, I do think it is a sign of the times. I do think the fact that Nintendo's out here charging £75 and £67 for a digital game, it's a bit of a weird take. I really hope that this isn't a sign of things to come, because we are getting closer and closer to that £100 game. And I don't know when that's going to happen. There's a lot of rumours that it's going to be GTA 6, and I really hope it's not, because they have a chance here to do something silly and do it really cheap at, say, 60 quid and just blow everyone out of the water with it. But it's money and Take-Two, and they won't do that. We all know that. But then you had games like Clear Obscure Expedition 33, which is my game of the year. I love that game. It made me cry, but it was blooming brilliant. That came out at 50 quid, and it sold over 1 million copies within the first week. Like, it's ridiculous. But the point I'm trying to make is, I really hope that Nintendo's game prices don't keep on creeping up and up, but we both know they are. I'm talking to you directly. We know that those upgrade packs are going to be expensive. We know that they're charging for the flipping instruction book for it. The welcome tour is like about a tenner, I think it is. It's ridiculous. Gamers don't have the ability to spend as frivolously as we used to. Life is really expensive right now. Things like this aren't going to help out with that. And I'm not saying Nintendo should be sitting there doing charity and making things really cheap, but I do think they need to take a look at the market that's out there and realize if you want to charge $80 for games, they're probably not going to sell as well as you think, especially because Nintendo games never come down in price. Every so often, yeah, you did get them put into sales. Like I remember Tesco of all places would have them at a random like 20% off, but it lasted for a week until it was all bought out and then it went back to normal pricing. They're expensive. And if you add in the fact that for Breath of the Wild, for example, if you didn't have Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, getting better at saying that, see?
I'm proud of you, you know that.
You didn't have that service, you'd have to buy the game, the DLC, and then the upgrade pack, which I think, you know, if the math is mathing, it looks at, it's about like 80, 85 quid for that game. For a game which came out on the Switch 1 on launch day, it's not really giving me much hope that this is going to be a generation in which people can make those frivolous choices with game purchases. And I really do encourage a lot of you out there to try out the indie market and check out what is out there from indie developers, because that is how these games companies are going to learn. They learn from what the trends of the market are, and hopefully if a lot more people start investing in these really interesting indie games that are out there, you are going to have a great time with them. But when all said and done, the negative things which are coming on the horizon, they're always going to be there. Every generation you're going to have the unknowns. I'm really looking forward to this console launch. It's the first console launch in a while which I've been really excited for. I mean, it's the first console launch in a while full stop, but still, I'm just really looking forward to getting my hands on my Switch 2, playing Mario Kart World and really having a blast with it. And I'm sure that that launch is going to go absolutely fine.
Are you sure about that?